Envisioned as the successor to the M7 Priest and sporting a similar gun but on the more modern M24 Chaffee chassis, the 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriage M37 represented a step forward in artillery technology. Despite this, the end of the Second World War curtailed the M37's widespread adoption and limited its deployment. Initially slated to replace its World War II-era predecessors, the M37 never fully achieved this goal before being retired due to a change in military doctrine, which now required all vehicles to be able to seal against the potential nuclear and chemical hazards of a Cold War gone hot. The M37 HMC was designed in response to the U.S. Army's need for a lightweight and high-speed mobile artillery platform to replace the M7, which, despite its service record, had notable flaws. The M7 lacked a direct-fire sight, a major weakness in close combat. Its ammunition protection was inadequate, and its frontal armor was thin. In 1943, another artillery system, the T-16 4.5-inch GMC, was tested as a potential solution to these issues. Although it was lighter, cheaper, and more mobile, its insufficient gun depression hampered its direct-fire performance, leading to its rejection. However, lessons from this project were applied in developing a new artillery system using the latest T-24 light tank chassis. Procurement for a new pilot howitzer motor carriage based on the T-24 light tank, which would go on to become the M24, began in July 1943. This vehicle would be designated the 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriage T-76, and a wooden mock-up was built and then reviewed by the artillery officers of the Ordnance Board. The artillery officers advised that the T-76 would be mobile artillery for the proposed light tank units and needed a high rate of fire. To allow this rate of fire, the crew had to be increased from 6 to 7, and the fighting compartment had to be enlarged. This was achieved by moving the engine to the back instead of the middle, adding 30.5 centimeters to the fighting compartment, and by removing the assistant driver so that the gun mount could be mounted centrally, it increased the fighting compartment by another 15.3 centimeters. An anti-aircraft ring would be placed on the driver's right. A new mock-up incorporating these changes was then built for the inspection by the Ordnance Board in September 1943. As part of this, a gun crew from the Armored Command assessed various stowage arrangements. In September, after the best arrangement was found, representatives from the Army Ground Forces, the Armored Board, and the Tank Automotive Center reviewed an updated mock-up. The mock-up was approved, and the production of at least 2 pilot models was subsequently requested. To accelerate the delivery of the pilot's models, the Tank Automotive Center designed and procured the gun mount. It was designated the Gun Mount T-14 and was proof-fired on the 17th of March, 1944. Malfunctions were recorded, minor modifications subsequently applied, and the design of the necessary additional or replacement parts was started. These changes were implemented, and the new mount had reinforcements welded on to attach the mount to the vehicle. This caused the maximum elevation to decrease from 45 degrees down to 42. The elevating mechanism was also redesigned to provide an improved support pad and increased elevation radius. The redesigned mount was installed in the first pilot vehicle and subsequently tested at the Rock Island Ordnance Center in Illinois between June 4th and 11th, 1944. The initial tests were very satisfactory, leading to extended firing trials at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. The design was deemed acceptable, but several issues needed to be addressed. 1. When operating with all the hatches closed and the canvas cover in place, the temperature was too high for the crew to operate. 2. The gun's recoil guard was too short, which endangered the crew. 3. The breech block opened due to the operating handle unlatching, making it difficult for the loader to remove the shell casing. 4. When traversing right, the interphone communication control box blocks the traverse wheel, limiting the traverse. 5. The inner gun shield would bend, which rubbed against the gun opening, preventing the gun from easily elevating and depressing. 6. The panoramic sight mount T96 loosened and had excess dispersion when firing. And finally, 7. The travel lock was considered unsatisfactory. After the tests at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, the first pilot vehicle was sent to Armored Command at Fort Knox in Kentucky for automotive trials. The design was well received and found to be superior to the M7 in terms of fuel economy, slope climbing, and armor protection. Following these tests, the first pilot was returned to the Rock Island Ordnance Center to undergo modifications to the gun system, fire control, gun travel lock, and other minor adjustments. While these modifications were being made to the first pilot, the second pilot was being sent to Aberdeen Proving Ground for firing tests. Once these tests were completed, the second pilot was also modified to match the first, after which it was used as the basis for production. With the implementation of the final changes, the T-76 was accepted into service and standardized as the 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriage M37. A production order for 750 M37s was issued on the 12th of December 1944, to be completed before the 31st of December 1945. This was later reduced to only 448, likely because the war ended. Production started in January 1945 and lasted until 1953. Out of the 448 ordered, around 316 M37s were actually produced, with around 150 produced post-war by American Car and Foundry. The rest were produced by Cadillac and Massey Harris, likely starting before the end of World War II. The M37 was about 5.5 meters long, 3 meters wide, and 2.84 meters tall. Although the initial requirements called for armor superior to that of the M7, the M37's armor ended up being comparable, featuring 12.7 millimeters of welded, rolled, homogeneous steel all around, except for the rear floor. The M37 was armed with an M4 105mm howitzer, capable of achieving a fire rate of 8 rounds per minute. In addition to this, it also had a 50 caliber Browning heavy machine gun, primarily for anti-aircraft use, with 990 stowed rounds. The M4 howitzer could manually traverse 51.7 degrees, that's 25.4 to the left and 26.3 to the right. It could elevate from negative 10.5 degrees up to positive 42.8 degrees. The M37 carried a total of 126 rounds, of which 6 were ready to fire. A variety of shells were available, including the M1 high explosive, M67 heat or high explosive anti-tank, M84 smoke, either white or colored, M60 white phosphorus or mustard gas, M1 empty shell, and the M14 drill. The M37 was powered by 2 liquid-cooled 8-cylinder Cadillac Series 44 T24 engines, producing 220 horsepower with a fuel capacity of 416.4 liters. That's 110 US gallons of 80-octane gasoline split equally between 2 tanks. It could achieve a top speed of 56 kilometers per hour on the road with a cruising range of around 161 kilometers. The suspension system consisted of torsion bars with 5 individually sprung dual road wheels, and the first 2 and last 2 road wheels were equipped with shock absorbers. Initially, the M37 HMC had a crew of 7, a commander in the left of the hull, a gunner in the left rear of the hull, 4 cannoneers, and a driver in the front left of the hull beside the gun. After October 1952, the crew was increased to 8 with an additional cannoneer, likely to increase the fire rate, though this likely made the combat compartment cramped. The M37 entered service around April 1945, too late to see any real action during the Second World War. Its only combat deployment was with the 58th Armored Field Artillery Battalion during the Korean War, where it provided infantry support as mobile artillery. The 58th Armored was a segregated unit primarily composed of black soldiers and operated the M37 until the 16th of October 1951, when the battalion was integrated by being attached to the 65th Infantry Regimental Combat Team. After the integration, their time with the M37s was short-lived, as on the 10th of November 1951, the battalion transitioned to using towed howitzers and was redesignated as the 58th Field Artillery Battalion. The M37 also served with the U.S. forces in West Germany, likely until around 1957, including with the 30th Field Artillery Group and the 3rd, 14th, 70th, 74th, 78th, and 517th Armored Field Artillery Battalions. In the late 1950s, the M37 began to be replaced in frontline service by the M52, a turreted self-propelled howitzer based on the M41 light tank, which could be sealed for operation in hazardous environments. It served with National Guard and Reserve units until the early 1960s. Throughout 1945, the U.S. Army became increasingly interested in recoilless weapons, leading to a series of experimental projects aimed at integrating them into various vehicles. The first experiments using the M37 HMC chassis began in the spring of 1945, replacing the M2 heavy machine gun with a T-21 75mm recoilless rifle. However, this configuration had a significant drawback. The recoilless rifle's excessive backblast could potentially injure the crew if the weapon's rear was positioned over the fighting compartment. Additionally, the possible firing directions were not optimal, resulting in the cancellation of the project on October 2, 1947. In an effort to extend the M37's service life, the York Safe and Lock Company of York, Pennsylvania designed a conversion kit in 1945 to transform the M37 into a mortar carrier. The converted vehicle would have been armed with an M4 4.2-inch mortar and likely designated as the mortar carrier T-38. The plans were then transferred to Detroit Arsenal, where one M37 was converted and tested at Aberdeen Proving Ground in December 1945. Despite trials lasting until 1949, the vehicle was not accepted for production, as self-propelled mortars had fallen out of favor by that time. The only country outside the United States to operate the M37 was Spain, which received approximately 28 M37s. The first three vehicles arrived at the port of Cartagena on the 7th of January 1957, with the remainder arriving by the end of 1958. The M37s were initially assigned to the Regimiento de Artillería a Caballo 19 and the Regimiento de Artillería de Campaña 13, with a few remaining vehicles sent to the Artillery Academy. Later, the 19th was dissolved, and its M37s were transferred to the Grupo de Artillería de Campaña Aeropropulsada 11. Similarly, the 12 M37s from the 13th Campania were transferred to the Grupo de Artillería de Campaña Aeropropulsada 12. Both the 11 and 12 groups belonged to the Brigada Acorazada Brunete. In Spain, the M37 served until around 1965, when they were replaced with more modern artillery systems. The M37 emerged as an improved artillery system born out of the necessity for an improved, lightweight, high-speed mobile solution to replace its predecessor, the M7 Priest. Through meticulous development and rigorous testing, the M37 evolved into a useful tool that was too late to serve in World War II. It, however, proved its usefulness in the Korean War. Over time, the M37's role continued beyond wartime theaters, serving in West Germany and continuing its duty with the National Guard and Reserve units well into the early 1960s before being retired for good. What are your thoughts on the M37 self-propelled artillery system? Should it have been produced and deployed more extensively? Share your opinions in the comments below. As always, if you enjoy our content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you'd like to support us further, consider donating on Patreon or PayPal. Lastly, we want to extend a special thanks to our medium and heavy tank Patreon supporters: Alex Harvey, Andrew Oberg, Gustavo Sanchez, Owen M., and the Sasquatch. Your generous contributions help fund our books, illustrations, and video production. And as always, keep us in your sights.